Oh, yes, under the meditation. That would be lovely. Thank you. So now is our time to go deeper into our prayer time and have some meditation. So I invite you to get those feet firmly planted on the floor. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. And just let the chair support you as you begin taking some deep breaths in and out. Relaxing your body, letting go of the rushing around this morning and just being fully present here. We're going to take a little journey in our minds this morning. We're going to go to visit that time in your life that if someone asked you, what was the best time of your life? What is the best that you can possibly remember? Maybe it's when you were the happiest, or you felt most appreciated, or a time that you wouldn't mind reliving once again. So just let your imagination take you to that memory when you were so happy, enjoying your life, doing things that you love, being with people that you love. Remember what that feels like. Just feel that as you're breathing in and breathing out and allowing your heart space to expand with the love of the memory that you have. Just breathe it in. It's almost as if you are there now, feeling that experience. This time just happens to bring a smile to your face because it was so wonderful. Now I invite you to ask Spirit, in the quietness of your being, what can I do to bring that feeling, that experience into the here and now in this moment? And I invite you to allow Spirit to give you an idea of what that might look like as we enter into a moment of silence. You are always guided and directed. When you ask, you will receive the guidance. Maybe not in this present moment, but you will once you get quiet. Maybe you extend your meditation at home later today, or in the morning you re-ask again, what can I do to bring that joy back? What is it that I can do in this now present moment to feel that feeling, to know that joy that I had at that particular time in my life. What is it that Spirit can guide me to do or be or say or feel that brings back that magic into this present moment where actually all the good unfolds here and now. It isn't in the past. It's not in the future. The magic is here now. So what can we do to recreate that joy barometer in our lives that brings us that feeling once again? Life is so precious and so special. And the universe is waiting for you to give it the sign that you know what you want. And then you just let it go and allow it to unfold for you. The power of your imagination and the power of your mind is magnificent. And when you set your intentions, there is nothing that you cannot create in your life. So I invite you to claim it. See it in your mind's eye. Feel it. Make it as real as you did earlier when you were thinking about that special time. Bring it back. Increase your joy. That's the vibration we all want to feel. And so we say thank you, indwelling Spirit, for this sweet time of being able to revisit that time in our life that we can recreate those feelings once again. And now we start to wiggle our fingers and toes and bring our attention back into the room. We say thank you, indwelling Spirit, for this sweet time of remembrance. And so it is, and so we let it be. And whenever you're ready, just open your beautiful eyes. Thank you, Lisa. I spent the majority of my life in the field of geriatrics, and there isn't much that I didn't do. I ran a senior center out of a Salvation Army building in Austin, Texas. I ran a senior nutrition program and transportation. I negotiated contracts with the city of Austin's bus service to pick up people and make sure they got to the nutrition site so they could have lunch and play dominoes and do all those fun things that they like to do. I helped with the errand service for the elderly. I ran adult daycare centers. I even installed those "I've fallen and I can't get up" devices in people's homes. There isn't hardly anything that I haven't done in geriatrics. And then the last 11 years, when I started to kind of get interested in ministry, I was the vice president of education for all the not-for-profit retirement communities in Texas, and did 60 seminars a year. We traveled and we trained, and all the people in long-term care and retirement housing. And I met a lot of older people. I worked with a lot of older people, and I worked with a lot of their families. And the funny thing is I was in my 30s and 40s. I thought those people were old people. And I can tell you, the oldest one I met was in adult daycare. She was 109. Her name was Lizzie Grant. She had outlived all 7 of her children. She had been a sharecropper and told me once she started chewing tobacco when she was 9. She was a beautiful soul. Her granddaughter took care of her in her house, and she never had to go to a nursing home, ever. It was very, very sweet. So I want to tell you, my perspective has changed a little, because now I'm that age group that I used to think that was old. I don't think the same anymore. I am amazed and impressed by how people are living their lives so much better, so much longer, so much healthier, right? So I didn't really understand it at all. I thought I did, you know, how you think you know everything. So this is the 4th week now that we have been working on this theme, growing gracefully. And it goes along with this, we're covering every aspect of our life. This is the balance wheel. So if we are doing all of these things well, we are living out loud, people. And so personal development is what we've been doing all this month, looking at what are the things that we can do for ourselves that help us to live that best life. And so, of course, grow old or grow onward, that's your question. You know, what are you choosing to do? So how we choose to live our life determines whether we grow old or we grow onward. So I've been in the Flow of Life book by Eric Butterworth, and he quotes this guy Joseph McDonald who said, "My age is none of my business." That was the key to his youthfulness, you see, because while everybody else was counting birthdays and thinking about retirement and wondering if they're going to have enough money when they get to that retirement age and all those things most people do, he was out having a good time. He was living his life, doing all the things that he loved. He was so busy enjoying his life, he didn't have time to waste about worrying or about getting older. We've been conditioned in our society to this point where is almost as soon as we're born, we're like going downhill because we're heading toward death. We have this cultural thing that society has kind of placed on us, you know, about these numbers that are just really random numbers. That's just not the case, you see. That's not really the way it is. The world has conditioned us to act our age, but now we must begin to act our youth. It's time, you see. And we have to do that to act our experience in the flow of life. I bet you're the same. I don't feel the number that we would put on my birthday. I don't feel that at all. And I don't know if it's because the 60s are now the 40s, or the 70s are now the 50s, or you know what it is? We feel like we're going back in time instead of going forward. We feel the same in these bodies no matter what the number is. The numbers just seem to be random because we have plans, we're doing things, we have excitement in our lives. So what is true for each of us is that life is simply consciousness. You are as young or as old as you think you are. So you get to choose, you know, which end of the spectrum you want to be on, because life is a flowing, eternal process that never ends. Each of us is that like specific channel of that flow because we're each individualized expressions of God. So we're all part of that. Actually, life is a dramatic process of renewal and regeneration, not going downhill. Do you know how many times your body replaces the cells? I mean, it is constantly working to keep you going. It's not the other way around. So why shouldn't our continuing years make us stronger and healthier and happier instead of going down in that spiral? Too often we have just acquired our fullest equipment. We are like, things are going well. We have more money now. We have more time now. And then we start worrying about what tomorrow brings. And we spiral down and we lose that zeal and enthusiasm that Fillmore had when he was 93. We start buying into this falsity about what is going to happen in our life, and we start blocking our own good with excuses like, oh, you know, I'm too old to do that. I can't possibly do that. The Kellings just got back from the Camino. I mean, you can go and do whatever you want, whenever you want. There's no age limit on it. The important thing, you see, is not what happens to us, it's what happens within us. That's the most important thing. Perhaps it's now the time to reject the cultural norm and walk on. Just don't accept that whole cultural aging thing. A few years ago, Reverend Eileen and I had an opportunity to travel to Detroit to the Unity People's Convention, and we had the pleasure of hearing futurist Barbara Marx Hubbard knock our socks off in one of the general sessions there in Detroit. And I love the way she coined this phrase or this term for middle-aged women. She calls it regenopause. So this is when a lot of women are getting their second win. They hit 50 and they go, wow, I got more freedom now, I got more time. Regenopause, I like that. Instead of talking about retirement, we talk about rewirement. Some people have 3, 4 careers, some more than that, because they're living longer and their interests take them in a direction that they had never even thought of before, because they're tapping into spirit, they're paying attention, and they're following that joy channel, right? I love that she mentions people shouldn't talk so much about retirement. She said we all need a life purpose, following that inner compass of joy. I love that. She was president of the Foundation for Conscious Evolution. She taught that humanity was on the threshold of a quantum leap, right? If newly emergent scientific, social, and spiritual capacities were integrated to address the global crises, we would have taken this leap. She was the author of 7 books on social and planetary evolution. She stayed on our planet for 90 years. She just recently made her transition, and what an inspiration she has been. So I want to take you now to Scripture. We interpret the Bible metaphysically in Unity and New Thought. And so today we're in the 4th chapter of Ephesians, verses 14 and 15. It says, we must no longer be children tossed to and fro and blown about by every wind of doctrine, by people's trickery, by their craftiness in deceitful scheming. But speaking the truth in love, we must grow up in every way into Him who is the head, into Christ. So isn't that what we're aspiring to be, more Christ-like? That whole thing about we may no longer be children tossed to and fro means that we're getting spiritually attuned to who we are. We become more stable, we become more reliable, we become more sure in expressing the truth that we know, because we're living our 5 principles, aren't we? We're living this truth as we grow Godward, which is how we grow onward, is to grow Godward. This is accomplished by our learning to contact and to know God within ourselves. That's principle 4, isn't it? How do you get to know God? God is, I am, I think, I pray. Pray and meditate. Pray and meditate. That's how we get closer. And so this scripture is about the goal of every one of us is to be more God-likeness, you see. We're aspiring to be that expression of God that we came here to be. We all have beautiful purposes to be the love, to be the joy that we came here to be. We aspire to be like Jesus. And we do that. There's a great transformation that takes place, not only in our minds, but in our physical bodies as well. As we grow more Christ-like, we grow nearer to the true unity of the faith that can only exist in spiritual understanding and practice. And that is what happens, you see, when we live the truth we know, which is principle 5, right? Live the truth you know. Practice the principles that we're teaching. It just makes so much sense to me. Unity just makes so much sense. And we give you the tools, the practices, and the things that you can do to be that which you came here to be. Our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, in his book, Adam's Smashing Power of Mind, uses the analogy, which I love because I'm a gardener, of people as gardeners. He says there is a law of growth in mind parallel with that of the earth. So with every thought that finds lodgment and also credence in your mind, it will produce fruit of its kind, just as surely as will the material seed planted in the earth. The time of planting is usually so remote that even he who knows the law of growth from thought to thing can't remember when he sowed the seeds that are now manifest in his consciousness. Isn't that the way it is? We're like, what was I thinking? Where did that come from, right? But each person is a gardener who has an absolute charge of his mind. Absolute charge, and can determine just what kind of seeds you want to be planting in the earth, because that is your domain. When you can control your thoughts and you can control your emotions, there is nothing that you cannot do. It's the to and fro that the scripture is talking about, is when we are not living in alignment with principle. We're letting the media bother us. We're letting what a neighbor said to us bother us, what a child or grandchild did bother us, and we're not using the principles. That's how we get tossed to and fro. But when you know who you are and you know how precious and special you are and you're living in alignment, nothing and no one can do anything to you. Only you can do something to yourself by what you're thinking and how you're judging something, how you're perceiving something. So to me, this is principle 3. He's talking about what you think about, you bring about. That's principle 3. If you're a gardener, you know that sturdy plants have to have deep roots, right? Well, what's the difference with us? We also have to have deep roots, and our roots are rooted in God, you see. Our spiritual practices, our truths that we know are rooted in us. So talking about it just isn't enough. We have to do the action, which is principle 5. We can't just talk about our spiritual practice. We have to actually do this. And Butterworth, in The Flow of Life, says it takes commitment. It is a commitment, he says, to grow onward rather than simply to grow old. When asked how she managed to grow old so gracefully, a retired Midwestern doctor replied, "You don't grow old. When you stop growing, you are old." The most remarkable people that we feel drawn to, that we want to be in their energy of, are these ones that are like timeless. It's because they have this charm of spiritual liberation, because they know who they are. They're happy. They're following their joy meter. They know what their life is all about. Robert Browning said, he must have understood this when he said, "Grow along with me, the best is yet to be," right? He's saying grow onward. Don't settle into that rut of old age. Use your added years creatively, because you have so much creativity in you to express. That's part of your 12 powers, right? Your job is to express. You're in the express business. Did you know that? You're in the express business. You are an expression of spirit in the flesh. Expressing as much of God through you as possible. That's our goal. So how do we do this work? What is it that we have to do? Well, there's a beautiful story that I read in Positive Christianity that I think is demonstrates how we make a difference in our lives. There is a story about this nurse who's extremely tired on the last end of her shift, and she has this young man that's sitting out in the waiting room, and she escorts him into this room of this elderly man who is about to make his transition. He's really, really frail, and he's hooked up to all these machines and everything, and she leans over the bed, and she sort of hollers to this man, "Your son is here." And so she tells the young man to sit there, and then she leaves. And all night long, this young man Oh, first I have to go back. When she says that, he opens his eyes just for like a nanosecond, and then he closes them again. And so the young man sits there, he holds his hand. He says words of comfort all night long. And then in the morning, the man has made his transition. He's died, and the nurse comes in, and she goes to turn off the machines, and she's going to turn and say words of comfort to this young man, and he says, "Who was this guy?" And she said, "You mean he's not your dad?" And he said, "No, I never met him before in my life." And she said, "Well, why didn't you say anything to me when I brought you in?" And he said, "Well, he needed a son, and his son wasn't here." I know, right? Those kinds of things are the things that I think help us to grow deep roots. When we do random acts of kindness for other people, nobody's asked us to, we're not getting any publicity out of it, right? It was just a sweet thing to do. He spent his whole night there with a stranger, right? I think that is what is going to help us make a kinder world. More people doing random acts of kindness like that. I think these are growing our roots in God consciousness, and it grows it within our soul and makes it stronger. We are made to travel this life hand in hand. We're not here to do it by ourselves. There's someone waiting right now to take your hand, and there's someone hoping that you will take theirs. It's true of all of us. We just have to be open to the opportunity, right? Spiritual growth requires that we do this. So, other than random acts of kindness, what else can we do? How can we live in the now and not be thinking about the past or worrying about the future? I think we keep our minds and energy in the present moment. Our energy is fully present now, and we have to allow that to fuel our physical and emotional healing and our well-being, because our healing is what's going to heal the world. Holding on to regret is like carrying this bag of bricks behind you, right? It's like dragging the weight of the past everywhere we go. So letting go of regrets and living in the present, because that drains our energy, and we don't want that in our life. We can choose to move on right now by applying what we have learned to the present, and perhaps even sharing what we've learned with other people. Transforming the energy into something that is constructive and creative for others and for ourselves as well. You see, we can bless everything that's ever happened to us. That's a form of forgiveness, isn't it? Knowing that everybody did the best they could with what they had. Yeah. So I want to tell you that I aspire to be like Mary Grable, 107. She's about to move to Charlotte County, and when she does, she's going to be Charlotte County's oldest resident. She was in the newspaper this week. She has this sexy pose. Come and look at it afterwards. This woman is an inspiration. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She's a world traveler. She piloted a pontoon boat till she was 99 years old, and she still loves playing tennis and dancing. She loves life. You can see her zeal and enthusiasm in her pictures in the newspaper. She is living her best life. No regrets, no looking back. At 70, she went cross-country skiing, and that was in 1975. She doesn't consider herself old at all. She still knits and donates her prayer shawls to people. She started a line dancing group when she was 99. How many of you can say that? Right? Don't you want some of what she has? I do. I really do. And if you ask her about what she attributes to her long life, the first thing she'll tell you was her faith in God. Number one. And then she follows that with her beautiful family and her friends, exercise, diet, and fellowship. Those are her keys that she said. Pretty good advice, I'd say. Pretty good advice. Reverend Chris Chenoweth says spiritual growth should be all of our goal. You should know intuitively that there's a pattern of perfection in you. You are a child of God capable of happiness. Something in you never forgets and never for a moment loses sight of the spiritual nature of your being. You live in God, and with each passing day, you become more firmly grounded in God. You derive your strength, your life, and your wisdom from God. You will find more strength by giving it away. The strength will flow through you like a conduit. Enter your times of prayer with appreciation, and every channel of good will flow to you. Speaking of channels of flow, Kara had a Facebook post. It was a Rumi quote this week, and it said, "Don't go with the flow, be the flow." That's the goal, you see. The universe wants you to accomplish your goals, no matter how long you've dilly-dallied around and not followed through. It's waiting, going, "Okay, I'm ready." Wherever you're ready. And some of you have been venturing out and doing some things that you have really wanted to do. And when you first take a step, that sign of faith, the universe is going to come in and go, shh, and take you and do whatever it is that you want to do. You just have to quit fighting it. You have to nurture your dreams, but don't attempt to micromanage them. It doesn't have to be your way. It just has to be your intention for your dreams. And the universe is going to give you all the guidance you need to do whatever you need to do. Your journey will become one of great joy. So it's our job to let go and let God, right? Okay, enough preaching. It's time for a joke. There was this little boy, and every time he went over to his friend's house, the little boy's grandma was in the Bible. She was reading in the Bible. And he said, "Every time I come here, your grandmother's got her Bible out. She's reading." He said, "I know." He said, "What do you think that's all about?" And the little boy said, "I don't know, but I think maybe she's cramming for her finals." Oh, boy. Maybe she was. Maybe she had a reason to be worried. I want to close today. We just finished the third coming with Jim Roseberg. It was really, really good. I want to close with this today. This is the beginning of the second coming. It is radical in that there is no upward glance to the heavens. Instead, one more person is awakening to his or her spiritual identity. God is becoming real to this person. Once the individual's faith was based on belief in theological concepts, now it is rooted in experience. This is the return. Slowly, steadily, people are awakening to their spiritual identity. It is evident in our society that more and more attention is being given to spirituality. It is not because times are hard. It is because it is hard to live when we are not aware of who and what we really are. The typical belief is that the second coming or return will happen to the world. It will, but its pathway is through each individual soul. So you see, the work is up to us. Life begins for you every day. You choose. Grow old or grow onward. And that's the way it truly is. God bless. And now is the time in our service when we get to give from the generosity and good in our lives into this ministry. And so I invite you to take your tithes and offerings in your hand. And if you're giving online through PayPal or Breeze, we bless those offerings as well. Say together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, that this is so. And so it is. Namaste.